Hello, Durud and Shalom, everybody. I'm here with Isabella Maria DeLuca, right? Did I
Yes,
pronounce right?
DeLuca.
Yes,
Yeah.
DeLuca. Hi, Isabella. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Isabella, you're very famous, big name conservative commentator, activist. I see your social media, very active, very popular.
Yes.
And you've been active as an influencer for, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Introduce yourself?
Yeah, so just to give a little bit of background information, I never really was into politics too much. I grew up in a Christian conservative household, so I kind of was in tune at all times of what was going on in the world, just mostly because of my parents and they had Fox News on. But when it came time to go to college, I was actually going for nursing. And just the political climate being in New York and being at a college is not ideal to be a conservative or a Christian. And so I got really into politics and switched my major to political science. I've done digital media and communications for a couple different agencies. I've done two congressional internships. I did one on Capitol Hill. I did one in my home district. I was a press secretary for a policy organization for a little bit, and also as a media fellow for an international strategy think tank. I'm from New York,
Wow.
but lived in DC for a little bit. I'm out in Texas now. I work with His Gloria, doing some media communications and working as an on-air host for some of their shows. So I'm a busy gal.
That is a lot. That's amazing.
I like to stay
And
busy.
yeah, and you have been making a lot of noise recently because there's a lot of backlash. There's a political war, like civil war between the conservatives right now, and you are
Oh, yeah.
standing against the woke right on the side of Israel. I see you have an Israeli flag behind you.
Yes.
So I think a lot of these days, a lot of people would get, even people on the conservative side would get upset with that, wouldn't they?
Mhm.
Because are you Israeli?
No, no, but I'm
So
a
wouldn't
Christian.
they?
I'm a Christian, and so this is kind of where the movement splits because you have one side that says, well, we should put America first, and I'm all for America first. But I think what we're failing to realize that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East that is pro-West, pro-Christian, that represents and resembles a lot of the similarities that we have here in America. There's no other country in that region that represents the values that America has. And I believe
Mm.
that it's important to protect that and to advocate it for it. And as you mentioned, I think there's a huge crack in the conservative movement between those who are just, I mean, it's not even just America first. It's very, who's pro Israel and who's anti Israel.
So why is this happening? Like, why is the right splitting into two? And do you think it's because of Israel? Like, is this the main issue, that the disagreement? Is it anti-Jewish? Is Jewish hatred that is splitting the right into half, or is it other issues? It's mainly this, isn't it?
I mean, honestly, it's mainly this. I've been in conservative politics and media for the last couple years now, and I don't really know that I can recall a, social, cultural, or political issue that drew such a stark division, especially on the right. But Israel definitely, the topic of Israel has definitely done that. I believe that it's okay to question a government that you believe is corrupt. I believe it's okay to want to put your country and your countrymen's first. But again, what we're seeing is just people who believe, strongly believe, that Israel just doesn't have a right to exist. And at that point, I don't believe that you can really mend two parties, one who believes that a country has the right to exist and another that doesn't believe the country has a right to exist at all.
Yeah, but why is this happening? I mean, honestly, I kind of predicted this would happen because as much as we see a lot of problematic views from the left, I remember a lot of anti woke activism was growing because of the rise of woke on the left. A lot of people thought that all the problems are on the left.
Hmm.
I was one of the people who said, like, guys, we also have a whole bunch of crazy racist anti-Semitic views on the right, and people like,
Hmm.
no, Armin, all the problems are from the left. I'm like, I told them, just wait, because the right also has these problems. It's just
Yeah.
waiting for its time to show itself. It's not their time.
Hmm.
Because I go to the darkest parts of the internet and I always saw that these people exist and they're just
Yeah.
waiting for their day to come. And eventually, October 7th was the trigger
Hmm.
they needed for them to come out. But
Hmm.
do you think that? So I don't think this is new. I think these people were always there waiting for their time. Or do you think this is a new thing, or is just people who are now more daring?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Mm,
First, to address your first part of the question, it feels very spiritual to me when it comes to
mm,
this topic, mostly because, the split is so hostile and evil and vulgar and aggressive. I mean, again, for the most part, if I go on my X feed, if you see someone who's anti-Israel, it's not just anti-Israel. It's, racial slurs and it's anti-Semitic slurs, and it's just
mm,
being against the idea of Israel, being against the idea of Israel in the first place. And again, I feel like that's demonic from my perspective. I say, well, as a conservative, as a Christian, I don't agree with the far left on absolutely anything. There is not a single cultural, social issue, policy, economic issue that I agree with the far left on. But all of a sudden, I'm going to find myself agreeing with the far left on my position and my stance when it comes to Israel. I don't necessarily know that it makes sense. And then,
mm,
secondly, to address the other part of the question, I believe that, part of it, I feel like people, maybe inherently always had it in them, but I believe that it has become popular, and
mm,
almost a social contagion to hate Israel. It's become trendy to hate Israel. That's like the new thing. And so I think everyone is kind of just finding themselves in this like group of people who hate Israel, where they've also have a platform now where they essentially know that, and I can't even emphasize enough how many accounts that I see that overall honestly just have really shitty content, and the minute they start talking negatively about Israel, their stuff blows up. It's like
mm.
it's a niche for them to hate Israel, and they found that it's a moneymaker. Their content performs well for the most part when they do it, and that's why they do it. If you look at if they talk about anything else, it doesn't perform the way that it does when they talk about, Israel or being
Yeah.
anti-Israel for that matter.
Yeah, I think there's so many similarities. I mean, what I consider woke, both on the left and on the right, is identity politics mixed with a whole bunch of conspiracy theories
Mm,
and mixed with a whole bunch of blame finding, uh, playing the victim
mm-hmm,
for your identity, and also blaming the Jews for. And so the woke left is we are good because we are not whites, we are not able-bodied, we are trans or gay or woman,
mm-hmm,
and the evil people are capitalists, white
mm-hmm,
men, and also Jews, right? And
mm-hmm,
then the woke, and if the things, our conditions are not good because of these people that we have identified as evil are
mm-hmm,
suppressing us, just like Marxism with the wealthy people. This is more a cultural version of Marxism. And then the woke right is basically exactly that, but the identity is that we are white and we are being oppressed, and our oppressors are the Jews, and we're blaming the Jews.
yeah, I mean,
Basically, that.
I
Yeah.
think I agree with you, and I think that's a good way to explain it is in terms of identity politics. And what I would like to add on to that is that, what started as like a counterculture to the left, the conservative movement really rose, I would say, during Donald Trump's first presidency when he was running, because you have the left that in our universities, on our college campuses, in our society, on social media, they're pushing the idea that, white people are bad, capitalists are bad, tax
Right.
the rich. If you're a straight white male, then like you don't get to have an opinion, and basically ostracizing these people. And so the conservative movement began rising because it's like, well, it's okay to be, a man, and it's okay to, follow intrinsically what your biology says you should be doing. And it's okay that if you're as a woman, you want to be feminine, you want to stay home, and you want to raise a family. So in a world when the left was pushing this idea that white people are bad, you had the counter to that, which is like, no, it's okay to be white. It's okay to be
Yeah.
white, and it's okay to love who you are and love being white the same way that they do it. the counter to abortion was telling women, well, it's actually not empowering to, kill your unborn child. It's empowering to have a loving family dynamic and feel safe in that and raise children. And you can, go in the workforce and you can still have a family. The counterculture to the transgender stuff was like, well, God created you to be exactly who you're supposed to be, and God doesn't make mistakes. That ideology that was at one point the counterculture has become the very thing that it, was against in the first place, which is,
Right.
as you said, identity politics. And
Mm.
again, what the right has become is unrecognizable. The other thing that I think was also a counterculture is, cancel culture, right? If someone said, a racial slur 10 years ago, do I think that they should be kicked out of their university and lose their job? No.
Right.
But now you just have people saying it on the right for just no reason at all. And it's the
Yeah,
same thing
and
with
they
the
calling
anti-Jewish.
it out cancel culture.
Yes.
We went from actual cancel culture to now, if you actually say, yeah, that was a you platformed at Nick Fuentes without challenging him. Now they're like, oh, this is cancel culture. Why are you
Mm-hmm.
canceling me? I like so cancel culture has you criticizing people is now being described as canceling them.
Mm-hmm.
This is an over adjustment, and also
Mm-hmm.
the over adjustment went from it's okay to being white to it's better to be white.
Yes,
Right,
it's
that's the
it's
over.
change. It's change. And I
Right.
would say that again, that's why I go back to the idea that it feels spiritual, it feels demonic to me, because there's no other way for me to describe what I've seen on the right. And, you know, again, this is all new. Honestly, I would say in the last 1 to 2 years, it's gotten significantly worse. It's become unrecognizable to the point where it's a turnoff for me as a
Mm,
conservative. And I think this is also why conservatives are going to lose the culture war, because you have this massive divide between what I would consider to be far right and just normal Christian conservatives who want the
mm.
best.
Well, as an atheist, so as a Christian, you're saying this is demonic. As an atheist, I think that when it comes to blaming somebody else, when it comes to people not taking responsibility for the conditions that they're in, and wanting to blame an outside power that is controlling things, and also if politicians are not making the right decisions, instead of just accepting that politicians are sometimes bad at their job, no, that's not good enough. They're
Mm-hmm.
conspiratorial, and it must be a whole bunch of evil people in a room deciding to make your
Yeah,
lives bad. That's something that people want to.
right.
And yeah, and I think that the Jews are just, because throughout history the Jews were the most popular people to go to
Mm-hmm.
blame. Everybody just goes back to that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's just like you already have all the templates for
Mm-hmm.
blaming them. You already have all the conspiracy theories. You already have the narratives. So even if you want to come up with new conspiracy theories like devil worshippers or Illuminati or lizard people, eventually they become the Jews themselves. Like, oh,
Yeah.
Illuminati is the Jews. The lizard people are the Jews.
Yes,
The
exactly.
globalists are the Jews, because it
Mm-hmm.
just works, because it has been working since the Roman time. I think that's the real
Yeah.
reason why it always just both on the right and the left turns to the Jews. Is that your understanding?
I think that that's definitely an aspect from it, because I mean, you can speak to it as an atheist. As a Christian, obviously, a lot of my worldviews and the opinions that I have are rooted in the Bible. And so, when the Bible
Mm,
tells us that we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the evils of this world, and I think that that's true, because at least what I've seen too. I mean, I don't know how else I would describe it besides just a spiritual hatred for the Jews. Because again, there's the aspect of where I can blame people. I can blame 0.2% of the population, by the way, for the
mm,
problems in my life and why my life sucks and why this is a problem, why that's a problem. But then there's a spiritual aspect of it where I just feel like there's a moral fog that has covered the
mm,
conservative movement and many in this country, that is just blinding them, where they just kind of go right to, oh, well, it's the Jews. Well, let's blame the Jews. And, oh, the Jews this and the Jews that. And did you know the Jews this? And they are upset. It is, I'm telling you, it is a literal obsession. I don't even have to talk about the Jews. I can talk about Christian persecution. And you literally have people in the comment section talking about the Jews. And it's like, well,
Mm,
why are you so obsessed with the Jews when I'm talking about Christian persecution or I'm talking about the economy? And that
right.
is why, for me, it feels spiritual because it's an obsession. Like they can't help themselves.
Would you consider like non-Christians that are anti all of, so like for example people like us atheists who are against anti-Semitism, they are against woke
Mhm.
right and woke left, like do you consider people, do you need to be a Christian to be able to be on this fight, or do you consider non-Christians with similar views to be allies that you could unite with?
You're saying for myself or in terms of an
Yeah.
Israeli?
No, no, you, like you as a Christian, do you
Mhm.
consider like when it comes to fighting these, like I consider the main evils that we're facing against right now to be Islam, the woke right, the woke left, and communism, right?
Mhm.
But I'm an atheist, you're a Christian. Do you
Mhm.
think that this is a Christian fight, or is this basically all the people who are standing up for civilization, for the current world order, supported by America's army, to capitalism, trade, progress? Do you consider all of them to be on the same side, or is it just Christians versus everyone else, like
No,
true
I
Christian?
think above
Mm,
all, I think above all, it's a human fight. I always say the more the
right.
merrier. And I think too, that's where the conservative cause is also split because you have the woke right, as you talked about, which is basically closed off to the idea that you're promoting, where the more
Mm,
moderate Christian conservatives are not. I believe that you can be an atheist and, you can support civilization and you can support Western values and you can support democracy and, I think that's kind of where we're at.
right. And how do you think will fight this? Like, because I think like we're kind of losing, don't you think so? Like we're losing against like anti-Jewish hatred is, like I don't even want to call it anti-Semitism anymore because I don't think it says,
Mhm.
I want to call it anti-Jewish hatred, Jew hatred, because I think
Mhm.
that's stronger.
Yeah.
Jew hatred is on the rise. I mean, we have literal Nazis on the conservative movement right now, and they're growing.
Mhm.
They call
Mhm.
themselves Groypers, and they're
Mhm.
taking. I feel like they're a huge part of your movement now, and they're growing. Like they're taking over. It's really hard to win elections if you're
Yeah.
infected with a whole bunch of people that are actual Nazis, right? Like it's hard to win
Yeah.
elections. So, what is the solution with this?
Well, that's why I kind of touched a little bit earlier in our conversation about the right losing the culture war. And it's because you
Yeah,
have the woke right that is oversaturating the movement. It's kind of like those, like the radical left, right? You have like the
right,
left, and then you have the radical left, and you have all these people that are doing crazy things that are, harassing ICE agents and throwing, cocktails at ICE agents and trying to, kill ICE agents. Like, that's the example that I use because they give the moderate left a bad name, and the same goes for the radical right, where you have people that are literally promoting Nazism and Jewish hatred, and they get clicks and they get engagement and they get noticed and they get monetized by promoting those
right.
ideas and that kind of value set that they claim that they have. And so again, I mean, from my end, in terms of how to solve it, I don't know what it's going to take, but I think so long as these people are platformed and their voices are, out there, and
Mm,
I think they're going to continue giving the right a very bad name. And again, as a conservative, I don't even want to be associated with it. I don't want to be
right.
looped into a movement that also has those types of people in it. And so, as a conservative, if that's how I feel, imagine how people feel if you're a moderate or if you're on the fence or you're someone on the left who supports the same value sets that I, as a Christian conservative, support, but then you don't
Yeah.
want to get on board with those radical people. So, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a huge problem.
Yeah. I mean, would you agree? Like the left was basically destroying itself, and
Yeah.
the only thing the right had to do was just not be Nazis, and they
Yeah.
would have had this. They
It's a
would they would
very
have,
simple task.
yeah.
I
That's
mean,
the only thing they had to do.
the left
Yeah,
basically
yeah,
handed it to them. They made themselves look so bad, and that's
yeah.
why I believe that Democrats lost the 2024 election because they had become so out of touch with their voter base that they were pandering to this radical group. I mean, Kamala Harris campaigned on abortion and
Mm.
transgenderism, and literally such a small radical niche within within the leftist movement or the Democratic movement. And the moderate lefts and your regular Democrats are like, I can't afford groceries. I can't afford gas. I'm
Right.
working two, three jobs to put food on the table. And I believe that's why they lost the election. They had become so out of touch with their voter base because they were pandering to those radical leftists. And I think the same applies to the right.
Right. The problem is that so a lot of people want to hear people understanding their issues, but the problem is that the left can make so many empty promises with free stuff
Mm,
that the right doesn't have like there if if both of them talk about the economy, the left will win
mm-hmm,
because the right's solutions to economic problems are difficult to understand. Well,
mm,
the left could just be like, here, I will give you free stuff. I will take from the rich and give it to you. And people like that message. But for
mm-hmm,
me, from somebody that is economically right leaning, explaining, like, oh, is the price of rent too high? I'll freeze it. People are like, oh, great, that's good. I'll vote for that. But me, as a right leaning, for me, I'm economically right leaning. Explaining why that doesn't work takes a couple of sentences. It doesn't. It's not as easy as so. That's why I think like economic populism always will beat right leaning economic, capitalism. So what do you think is the solution to that? Because if we want to talk about, and that's why the right wins if they all of a sudden play the identity politics and become Nazis, right? That's
mm-hmm.
why the right is like so many people on the right think this is the way to win because economic
Mm-hmm.
concerns are so hard to explain. Capitalism is hard to explain. What do you think? What's the
Yeah.
solution?
I mean, I think to the point that you're making, I think the New York City mayoral race is actually a good example of this. You have Zohran
Yeah.
Mandami, who Gen Z would describe as having aura, which is, someone who's popular and whose ideas are, seemingly popular. 89% of women from 18 to 29 voted for Zohran Mandami in this mayoral election that just happened. Now, this is somebody
Mm,
who's called to globalize the Intifada, which calls for jihad against the West, for unbelievers. That's their holy war in Islam. And so he's refused to denounce it about three, four times. I think he only started to denounce it back in September, about a month or two
right.
right before the actual voting and elections. And so that doesn't like Gen Z doesn't care about that. They want something that they can easily take in, that they can easily understand. And so when you have this guy that comes in and, as you're saying, well, I'm going to freeze rent and you're going to get free
Yeah.
subway rides and, free bus rides and, city run grocery stores. And what he's describing is a Marxist, socialist, utopian society that will essentially turn New York City into a third world country. But these people aren't thinking about that because they're being
Mm,
blinded by all like the glamorous things that he's describing. And so I think honestly, the right has a really bad PR problem right now because I don't think that they prop up the right candidates. They propped up Curtis Sliwa as the Republican candidate in the mayoral election. And in reality, the Republican Party should have backed Mayor Eric Adams in that election because one, a Republican wasn't winning, and I can't even tell you how many people I've spoken to that have no idea who Curtis even is. So the
mm,
right has a really bad PR problem. They continuously prop up these old, you know, George Bush era style candidates, and I think that's why they lose. And it's like there's almost no in between. It's like you either get a guy like Curtis or you get like someone on the far right that's like supporting Nazism. And like those are the two images that Republicans have. And so again, I think Republicans just need to do a better job of one, propping up the right candidates, people that are relatable, people that people can, you know, are in the same age group as them. They don't want to vote for somebody that's like, 78 years old for the New York City
mm.
mayoral election when you have a young guy like Zohran Mandami who's, out all night and traveling and not sleeping. And so, I mean, we'll see what happens. I think the midterms is a always a good indicator of what's to come in the presidential election. You had Zohran Mandami that won. You had the Democrat that won in New Jersey. You had the Democrat that won the attorney general race and the governorship in Virginia. And you had Proposition 50 that passed in California. So Scott Pressler's out there. I'm sure you've heard of him. He's out registering voters, and he goes and he travels all throughout the United States registering Republican voters. And the truth is, he can't do it by himself. So Republicans definitely need to get their act together before the elections in next year.
Are you hopeful, or do you think that this trend is going to continue?
I mean, I'm hopeful. I'd always like to stay hopeful, but again, I think that the elections that just happened are a very good indicator and predictor
Mm.
of the presidential election in 2028. I also think that again, the right has a really bad PR problem right now because the people that are platformed and the people that are the loudest voices that are oversaturating our movement are people that hate the Jews and love Nazis. So that's definitely not a good look. And if you're someone who's a moderate who maybe isn't on board with Democrats, well then you're certainly not voting for Republicans when this is the platform that they have.
I don't know if you agree with this or not. I think we need more populists that stand for classical liberal value. A lot of people think that populists is a dirty word, but I think we just need because populists win elections, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's somebody with charisma, but that stands for the right side, like stands for classical liberal values. I don't know if you agree with that or not, because I think calling out somebody as a populist and dismissing them is also very elitist. Do
Mm-hmm.
you think that? What do you think about that? Like, I think we need to find people that we need our own Mamdanis, but that can speak like that understands social media like that, because he's a good
Mm-hmm.
speaker. He's like a really good
Yes.
communicator. We just need somebody like that, somebody who could simplify complicated ideas on why these ideas work in a way that is TikTok friendly. I don't know. That's what we need. Do we have that? Oh,
Can you hear me?
oh.
I went out for a
Yes,
second.
yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I mean, I agree with you because I just think that, again, you need somebody who is a relatable candidate, someone who can explain things super easily, someone who understands the generation and the trends because it is so, so crucial to run
Mm,
a campaign. I mean, I've done digital media and communications, I've helped with
yeah.
campaigns and the digital messaging, and it is a large part of the campaign. I mean, even like if you look at the White House TikTok page, right? It's all these TikTok trends because that's really how you're able to get Gen Z on board is with trends and music videos and all these things. And it sounds dumb, but
Yeah.
that it really does work. So I think if you had a candidate that was able to come in and do that, I think it would do the right a lot of good. I just don't
Are
know
you
that they
doing
really had.
are you doing any of that? Like these type of short viral videos?
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
I
because
do it. I mean, even still, the digital media agencies that I work for, the goal really is to take these
mm,
complex ideas and issues that are going on and to be able to translate them to my audience in a simple way that they can understand. Um,
mm,
to raise awareness. I mean, realistically, you can't raise awareness about issues that are, complex and that people don't really understand. Also, the thing about social media is people aren't really on their phones and they're not going to sit there and read like a massive paragraph about an issue. People that are scrolling
yeah,
on social media, they're just scrolling and they're looking for a couple seconds. If a post is like this big, 9 times out of 10, I'm not reading it. So you need to
yeah.
be able to keep it short and sweet, something that's easy to understand that people can, still be educated enough on.
What One other reason I think that the woke right, or basically Nazis, are rising within the conservative movement, I think it. Let me know if you agree with this. I think a lot of young boys are just lonely,
Hmm.
and they don't have a girlfriend, and they look at their future and they think like they're not going to have a wife ever, they're not going to have a
Hmm.
house, they're not going to have a car. They see the previous generation of men that have big houses and cars and wives and children, and like I don't even have a girlfriend, and I can never see myself and there's a lot of, and they call it a loneliness epidemic.
Hmm.
And I think when you experience a whole bunch of men in that situation, the best way to channel that anger is to join a cause
Mm-hmm.
that has identified an enemy that is the reason for why I'm in the
Mm-hmm.
situation that I'm in, and just try to destroy that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that is the reason why, like among groypers, like this is why I see, at least in the right, hatred for women, the
Mm-hmm.
Venn diagram for hatred for women and hatred for Jews is almost matching, right? At least in the right leaning people, because I think a lot of it comes from uh, failure to attract women
Mm-hmm.
or being lonely. Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
that's part of the reason. Do you think that's also part of the reason or no?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think to an extent, I think kind of what we talked a little bit about earlier about that counterculture movement that started, in response to what the left was saying, right? So when the left is saying, well, we don't need men, and the feminist movement is saying, oh, we don't need men, and, we as women can do it all by ourselves, well, that's when the men came in and kind of said, no, you do need men. And I think that that group of people has now like flocked to someone like Nick Fuentes. I mean, I don't remember the number, but I was at a Megyn Kelly event and Tucker Carlson was there. The amount of young men that listen to Nick Fuentes, and I think it's because you have somebody that is affirming that it's okay to be white, it's okay to want to be a man, and it's okay to intrinsically act like a man and, want to have a wife and a family in a society that tells you those things aren't okay. But I think that's why men are flocking to Nick Fuentes because he is telling them that it is okay to do these things. But that movement, that counterculture, has now morphed into just something completely unrecognizable.
Well, Nick Fuentes has gone farther. Like, no, he's not saying go get a wife. He says, like, forget women altogether.
Yes,
Women suck.
that's what
Join
I'm
my
saying
movement
though.
instead. Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
started off not like that and it's now morphed into
Yeah.
something else, and now what you're creating is a bunch of incels. It's the same people in
Yes.
the traditional movement in conservative politics, the trad movement, where you had women that were like, no, get married, have kids, bake bread, like bake sourdough, do all this thing. Well, those women are now encouraging men to cheat on their wives and have more than one wife, and oh well, if you're not sleeping with your husband, well then you deserve to be cheated on. It started off with good intentions and now it's morphed into something completely unrecognizable. I think Nick Fuentes had a lot of good potential to run with something good and it's turned into something again unrecognizable.
Well, okay. So this is why I'm a little bit pessimistic, and let me know if I'm wrong. Okay, I think this is not because of Nick Fuentes. I think there's something bigger happening, and Nick Fuentes is just a demonstration of what's happening, right? Like if it wasn't Nick Fuentes, it would be someone else. Like this is I think this is a bit deterministic, and I think that this is just a product of being part of being in the middle of the fourth industrial revolution and the changing of the structures, the basically the unit of family, the way all many of the social contracts that we have is not. Every time we have an industrial revolution, the old ways we did things are not going to work, and we need new social contracts and new ways of doing things. And in the middle, a lot of people are going to get crushed, and that's why we have a loneliness epidemic. And I think, I mean, in any advanced country, as soon as we have some economic progress and people make more money, that mixed with the fact that women have more rights and they could work now and they need men less, and give the fact that there's more opportunities to make money, that's going to leave a lot of men lonely. That, like, and
Well,
there's no avoiding that. Yeah,
I want to just interrupt for a second because I want to clarify. I'm not directly blaming Nick Fuentes. I'm just saying
I know,
that
I
you
know.
had counters to the movement that had really good intentions that have morphed into something else. Nick Fuentes is an example of that. The trad
Right,
movement that I also gave in it, that's also an example because you have a movement that started off really, really good that has now become unrecognizable and that has become
right.
radical in its ideology to the point where it's insane.
Yes. Yeah. So what I'm saying, so I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that the way I see it is that there's bigger forces at play here, like economic forces,
Hmm.
that makes this inevitable. And if this is inevitable, it's going to continue and
Hmm.
it's going to get worse.
Yeah,
That's what I think.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, again, too, I mean,
Mm.
it goes back to what I said. I think that there's a spiritual aspect, but I do think that someone somewhere is profiting off of all the chaos that is happening. I mean, there's what's the saying? It's like, well, if chaos didn't make money, then, there wouldn't be any chaos. And I think that's I think that what we're seeing is the perfect example of that.
Yeah, okay. So let's actually go to somewhere more up, maybe things are maybe moving in the right direction. Weirdly so, the Middle East, because I think with even with all of these anti-Israeli hatred and anti-Jewish hatred, Israel is kicking ass and
Mhm.
destroying its enemies and winning. So, and also hopefully Iran is close to being free, and a lot of Iranians are. I don't know what's happening in North America and Western Europe. But I think in Iran, more and more Iranians are having better ideas, better values. They're for freedom of speech, they're for classical liberal values, they're for secularism. I don't know. Are you for secularism? For
Um,
secularism?
yes and no. I mean, in terms of Iran, then probably yeah.
No. Well, I mean, do you believe? Okay, so do you believe that religion should, the government shouldn't make laws based on religion, even if you have religious convictions? That's fine as an individual,
No,
but
I
the
don't.
laws should be. Oh, you don't believe that? Okay,
No, I don't.
uh,
I don't.
okay.
But I think that like for America, for instance, this is a Christian nation, right?
Mm,
And I think
okay, I disagree with that.
that aspect of the foundation of America is important. But that could be a conversation for another time.
Okay, that's the conversation. So, what do you think about the things I said about Israel and Iran? Do you think like Israel is just winning regardless of all the pressure, because and things are moving in the right direction there in the Middle East? What's your analysis on that?
I mean, for Israel, I believe, yeah. I mean, they're winning in terms of like the actual war, right? They always win. They've won every single war.
Yeah,
But in terms of like the PR war, it's really not good for them. Their PR is really bad, and I think that that's something that they're trying to work on. Um, it's very it's very easy when you have all these like conservative influencers that are just hating the Jewish people for the PR to be bad. So I understand. But again, I think that Israel is pro-West, they're pro-freedom, they're a democracy
yeah,
within the Middle East, and I believe that that is a greater representation because I always say that I think Israel does the dirty work for the rest of the world. Radical Islam is the greatest threat to the United States, and what I have a problem with is I have a problem with these Christian conservative influencers who are out there online, talking about Christ as king as some sort of gotcha for the Jews and some sort of like comeback. But they don't talk about Christian persecution. They certainly don't talk about the people that are actually persecuting Christians. Radical Islam is the greatest threat to our society, and you have Israel that is fighting that at the forefront so that it does,
yeah,
because if they're doing it to Israel, they're going to do it to you next. It's like when Trump said, oh, well, they're coming after me, but they're really after you. And I view
right,
Israel in the same capacity. They're going after Israel. Well, it's because they want to come after you. Um, and the conflict with Israel too, like, people are like, oh, well, did you read this book? And, what about this date in history? The analysis and the justification I have for supporting Israel comes from the Bible first and foremost. But then if you're not religious, then you really have to just sit here and ask yourself the question, well, if Israel were to stop fighting and lay down its arms today, what would happen to Israel? What would happen to Europe? And what would happen to the West? And then ask yourself what would happen if the Palestinians stopped fighting and laid down their arms, and what would happen to them, and what that would mean for Europe and the West.
yeah. Well, as an Iranian, I could tell you that I grew up in Iran, and we were always told that U.S. is the target, Israel is just in the way.
Hmm.
So Israel is the little Satan, U.S. is the big Satan, and the whole point of destroying Israel is so that eventually we could destroy the United States. I mean,
Hmm.
this was a three-step plan. The step plan, first phase was the removal of the Pahlavi dynasty in Iran to capture Iran. The second phase of the plan was to removal of Israel from the Middle East so we could capture the Middle East. But the eventual plan is to destroy the Western order after World War II, led by United States, and basically you dominate the world. So Israel is basically guarding not just the U.S. but the rest of the world, because these
Hmm.
are not the enemies of Israel, are not just the enemies of Israel. They're the enemies of the world. But Israel is just the country that is doing the most to stop them. So supporting
Yes.
Israel is not just supporting Israel. Supporting Israel is supporting the entire planet against our enemies.
Yeah, and I want to say too that, the argument too for being anti-Israel is, well, they're committing a genocide, and the truth is that Israel has helped the Palestinian people when it comes to food and aid and water. It's
Yeah.
Hamas that is withholding those things. But I also want to talk about the fact that if there was genuinely an ethnic cleansing and a genocide that was happening in Gaza, well, then why haven't any of the surrounding Muslim countries taken in a single refugee from Palestine? Because they even know the radicalization that has happened with those people. Egypt doesn't want those people.
Mhm.
Jordan doesn't want those people. And with Iran, I mean, in their current leadership, I mean, they would just be using those people as weapons like they do with Hezbollah.
Yes, exactly. I mean, Jordan already accepted so many Palestinians, and they almost toppled the government. And Lebanon accepted so many so-called Palestinians in, and they ruined Lebanon.
Well,
Everybody,
because
and
you can't tell the difference between who's a peaceful Palestinian citizen and who's, a Hamas operative that wants to infiltrate the state. You
yeah, I
can't
don't
tell
even
the
call them
difference.
Palestinians. I don't think there is any such a thing as a peaceful Palestinian, because the people there who are peaceful, I call them Gazans, because I don't recognize Palestine as a movement for and as a national movement. I think the Palestinian movement is a terrorist movement. So there are Gazans and the people of West Bank, and there is no Palestinian cause other, because they lie to the world about the Palestinian cause. It's not about a national and getting a nation state. It's about destroying Israel, and it has
Yes.
always been the excuse. This Palestine has always been the excuse. It has never been. They had never had the goal of having a nation state called Palestine. I
Well,
mean, even
there's
when it was, yeah, go on.
There's been, multiple two-state solutions proposed by Israel,
Yes,
despite them winning every single time. And there's one party or one group of people here that has rejected that two-state solution every time, and it's the Palestinians. I only say that because it's like to draw your point. There's no difference
yeah,
between a peaceful Palestinian and someone who's a Hamas operative. There's no difference. They're essentially the same, and that's why I say too their PR game is good, because they promote these people that are, oh, well, I'm just an innocent person, I'm an innocent Palestinian. And they ignore the fact that a lot of these people are very pro Hamas, very anti-Israel, and very anti-American.
yeah. And I think the best thing you could do for the people in Gaza is support the IDF's mission in Gaza, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anyone that cares more about the people in Gaza more than the IDF,
Mm-hmm.
because the Palestinian cause has invested in their suffering, in their tears and blood to make the movement. There's like, let me tell you something about the Islamic movement, the Islamic groups out there. They are not at all united or cohesive in any way, and every
Mm-hmm.
project that they ever have would fail because they will turn on each other. The only way to make them work with each other for a cause against the world liberal order is the so-called Palestinian cause. So they need the suffering of the people in Gaza, because there is nothing else that brings them together in one direction other
Mm-hmm.
than that. So they are so invested in Gaza, and they need it to continue. And while the IDF is basically killing their oppressors and might be able to liberate them if you actually let them, the Palestinian cause is the greatest curse upon the so-called Palestinian people. Like they have, the people in Gaza have no greater enemy than anybody in the Palestinian movement, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I agree with you too, and I think that's why, what's going on in Iran right now with the elections is so crucial, because, right now Israel is essentially the only pro-West,
right.
pro-democracy country in that region.
Only for, hopefully for not so long. I think if
Fingers
there's regime
crossed.
change, yes, I think there's if there's regime change in Iran, we will have Iran being pro-West again. What do you think
Hmm.
that's likely?
I mean, I hope so. I mean, I think it's hard too, because I think that there's a lot of citizens in Iran that if they come out and they speak up against the guy who's running Reza, remind me how to say his last name because I'm gonna butcher it.
Prince Reza Pahlavi. Pahlavi.
Pahlavi, yes.
Yes.
And so I think that when you have citizens of Iran that are supporting him and they're being
Yeah.
imprisoned and they're being tortured and they're being killed, I think that that's just kind of the the last chance that the current regime is trying to take to remain control over its people. I know that some people have brought up, the idea of the United States intervening, which I don't believe that the United States should intervene in regime
Yeah.
change. I mean, it's literally because of the United States' intervention that the entire Middle East is completely destabilized. And so I don't think the United States should get involved, but I definitely think that Americans, Israelis, and the Iranians should be supporting him in this fight.
Yep. So I do agree that this is United States should not doesn't need to intervene, but I think Israel's intervention would be helpful. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, if Israel wants to intervene, I mean, I think that that's fine. I think in terms of having American boots on the ground to get
Right. Right.
involved in another war and sending more money over, I just don't know is a good idea. Again,
Yeah.
because I attribute the destabilization to the Middle East because of America's intervention in the first place. And while this regime change would be different, it would be beneficial to not only Iran but to Israel and to America. I just don't know that that is a good idea for the United States to get involved.
Yeah, I don't know if I could blame the United States too much for the destabilization in the Middle East. I think I could blame Islam mostly for that. I think with that, I think Islamic movements would have been able to find a way to destabilize the Middle East without United States help. Okay, but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, United States had some good and bad influence in the Middle East, so I don't want to say like it
Mhm.
was all bad. There were some things that they did that was actually helpful. But right now, what we're hoping, we Iranians, like a lot of us, hoping for United States, is to just let Israel, because we Iranians and Israelis are very aligned in our goals. We have the same enemy, which is the Islamic Republic of Iran, both
Mhm.
political enemy and ideological enemy. And the Iranian people mostly and have very common values with Israelis, right? So they're both on team life, fighting against a cult of death, an Islamic cult of death.
Mhm.
So the bridge between the nation of Iran and the nation of Israel is being built right now, and it's getting stronger every day. So what we're hoping is that for Trump to not stop Netanyahu the next time Israel attacks, because during
Mhm.
the 12-day war, Trump was holding back Israel.
Mhm.
We don't need really the United States to get involved, but if we could just let Israel finish their job, that would be very much appreciated.
Mhm.
Unlike
Well,
last time, what do you think about?
you
Yeah,
guys understand it as Iranians probably a bit more because you understand what radical Islam has done to the country of Iran.
Islam,
Islam
Islam
has
as a
done
whole.
to the
Yeah,
country of Iran. It's completely destroyed it.
yeah,
And so you guys probably understand that a little bit more, which is why I really do believe that him being in power would be so beneficial to the
yeah.
alliance that, Israeli and Americans have, but also Israeli and Iranians. What people are trying to say, the leftists and the Democrats in Iran, as well as the leftists here, is that, well, people aren't really supporting Reza Pahlavi because well, he's not popular. And I don't believe that that's true. I think there's the
Yeah.
first aspect of it, which people are afraid to speak out because they're facing persecution and death for speaking out. You have people secretly filming videos in Iran saying that no, this
Yes.
is a lie. This is a lie that majority of Iranians actually support Reza Pahlavi to come in because they know what it would mean for them. He's been someone who's been at the forefront that I honestly have so much admiration for because he's speaking
Wow.
out against the same evil that has destroyed Iran because he knows that that same evil that's destroyed Iran will destroy Israel and will destroy the rest of the world if given the opportunity.
How do you know so much about him? Like, there's like, I often talk even to some politicians in the U.S. and they don't know much about him. The fact that you're aware of him and his influence is actually very impressive. Like, how did you come about, how did you come across Prince Reza Pahlavi?
Well, I think that this is the problem with the American media and the conservative movement because we'll spend so much time talking about the Jews and we'll ignore candidates like Reza Pahlavi, who are literally fighting at the forefront for democracy and for freedom in Iran, and the people that are also now being persecuted for supporting him, openly supporting him. But I mean, I think I came across a video of him because he was talking about Islam, and I think I actually have one of his I think I wrote down one of his quotes somewhere, but I think it's here.
Wow.
He said in
Wow.
a speech that he gave recently, that the Ayatollah had said, patriots are of no use to us. We need Muslims. Islam is opposed to nationalism because nationalism means we want the nation, nationhood, and not Islam. Which he quickly put that ideology into action as soon as he came to power, by the way. He changed Iran's national consultative assembly. It became they became the Islamic Consultative Assembly. The Conventional National Army was then turned into the Islamic Revolutionary Army, or Guard Corps. And the lion and the sun symbol that's behind you, which was the national flag for centuries, was then replaced to have, Allah Akbar on it. So that was
Yeah.
his first speech that I
Wow.
actually saw, and I was amazed, because I think, again, he is a symbol, just the same way that I say Israel is, a shining light in the Middle East for democracy and for freedom, is the same way that I look at Reza and saying that he is a shining light for democracy and freedom for Iran and for the Iranian people.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I think every single Iranian that watches this is going to fall in love with you. Wait,
Good.
how could we support, guys? I'm going to go and on our Persian channel, I'm going to promote you there as well. How could people find you and support you? Because look, like Kija in the chat, who's also an Iranian, saying, I'm surprised how much she knows about
Aw,
Iran. Yeah, like that's so impressive. I
thank
mean,
you.
yeah, I'm actually I'm so happy because I don't know if you agree with this, but I think a lot of the problems in the Middle East will be solved if we could bring back Pahlavi to Iran. I think a lot of
Yes.
Israel's problems would be solved. A lot of the like almost everything that
Mm-hmm.
is wrong in the Middle East could be traced back to the mullahs in Tehran. So if we
Mm-hmm.
could solve this one problem, I think 90% of our problem would go away. I mean, Israelis would get to live in much more peace and stability after that. So this is
Mm-hmm.
something that we should be focusing on. And I think the solution is to support Prince Reza Pahlavi, as you just
Mm-hmm.
mentioned. Yeah.
And I'm actually curious because I'm not too, I don't know really how the election processes in Iran work. And I guess just from my perspective, seeing that you already have a narrative that is being pushed in the media, which is that, well, it's all bots and, agents that are supporting Reza and not actual Iranians, when I actually believe it's the opposite, as I mentioned before. I think that majority of Iranians would support him in power. So I'm wondering, in terms of like corruption or rigged elections, is that something that really takes place in Iran? Is that something that would be of a concern
So
with something like him coming in?
okay, so you're right regarding his support. Every single scientific poll that has been conducted, every single one of them shows that he has more support than anyone else
Mm,
by a huge margin, right? So, with regards to currently under the Islamic Republic, the elections are um, just a show because what happens is that the regime pre-selects the candidates, and so basically it's not like anybody could run. It's only
mm,
the regime. They have to decide who gets to run or not. And also they mess with the numbers. Last time with the
mhm,
presidential election, all the numbers were divisible by 3, which is basically completely impossible unless somebody was making up the numbers. But even if they weren't engineering the elections, it's basically based on a few selected a few people that they have pre-selected that you could vote from, right? And
mm,
even once you vote for somebody and they become the president or the members of the parliament and the president have zero power. All the power comes from Khamenei and the supreme leaders. Selection process is circular, which I'm not going to get into. They basically pick it themselves. So it's not a democracy. It's completely
mhm,
dictatorial. So what the Iranian people want is to completely dismantle all of that. Like
mhm,
it's not going to be under the current system, under the current process. Like everything, like a complete toppling of the current structure. So we're going to have completely different constitution. We're going first. The idea is like we have Princess of Pahlavi's team has a booklet detailing all of this, right? So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have a referendum for the
mm,
Iranian people to decide if they want a constitutional monarchy or a
mm,
republic without a monarch. and that's going to be up to the. A lot of people think Prince Reza Pahlavi wants to bring monarchy back to Iran. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't. He doesn't want that. He wants the Iranian people to decide the type of the
Mm-hmm.
government, and then after that, we're going to have an election for a council that is going to write the constitution, and after that, we're going to have elections for the parliament, and then if we have a king, we're going to have a crowning ceremony and all of that. So that's the process. But it's like if you're asking me about the current elections structure, none of that will be used. Like all of that
Mm-hmm.
would be out the window. We're going to have a completely new, transparent, international with international observers,
Mm-hmm.
a new, complete new process. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. I have another media hit here in a second, but I guess final thoughts. I just wanted to say that well, one, I appreciate the conversation, but secondly, I think that in my closing thoughts, Christians, Americans, Israelis should really be rallying support behind the Iranian people and behind Reza Pahlavi because, again, I think that I don't know when you're gonna have another Reza Pahlavi again in Iran that comes up that is anti. I mean, he's like the Donald Trump. He's like the Donald Trump of Iran. He comes in, he's
Yeah.
anti-establishment. He says what's need to be said. He's saying the quiet part out loud that people are afraid to
Yeah.
say. And above all, I pray for his protection because I think that he's
No.
needed.
Oh my god, you have no idea. I'm gonna clip these parts out and I'm
Good.
gonna show it on the Persian channel, and I think they're gonna love you. Okay, where can people find you?
So I'm an X and I'm on Instagram. You can find me at Isabella M. DeLuca on both of those.
Okay, and I'm gonna put a link to that in the both of those in the description. But you're also starting a new show. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So I just launched my show. It's called Isabella DeLuca's Unfiltered. We launched a couple weeks ago now, so it's still a little bit of a baby, but we're still growing and nurturing it. That's why I moved to Texas about a couple months ago to be here with His Glory Media, and so they've helped me launch my show, and it's been great. So I'm excited.
Can you send me the link so I could
Yes,
post that in the description? Okay, yeah, send me the. So I'm gonna put the link to your Twitter and your Instagram and to your show once I get that in the description. Okay.
perfect. Well, thank you so
Okay.
much. I appreciate it. I'm happy to come on anytime. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much. This was such an honor. Thank you so much, Isabella.
Thank you, Armin. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Okay. All right, guys. I'm gonna read your super chats. Got two super chats here. Shauna saying Fuentes is leftist in my opinion. He's just a leftist for white people. Okay, how do you define a leftist then? If that's what you think. All right, and then Shauna also with another super chat. I don't know how to pronounce this person. Sargon Ungar has said that the right has a reflex to cater to the wealthy elite, but the issue is that that's not their primary voting bloc anymore. It's a bit of an identity crisis. Interesting. I have to think about that. Thank you so much, Shana, for the super chats, guys. Please share this show and like it and leave some comments. And if you're new here, please subscribe. Carl saying that was nice. Okay, thank you, Isabella. Jonah saying thank you for this live stream. Oh, you're welcome. Okay, guys, go check her. It's gonna take a little bit of time for me to put all her links in the description because I haven't received it from her yet because I need a link to her show. But go check her out and thank you guys for being here. I appreciate all of you guys. And say it with me, I'm Israel Chai, Javid Shah. See you guys on the next show. Mwah.